Hello everybody, welcome to Content Planning. This is session 8. Let's get right into it. This week, as you're familiar with the screen, we are doing content planning. It's an online class. Hopefully you've completed the reading. A lot of reading from our textbooks, both textbooks this time. Next week we will be in class. We will be doing content modeling. It's kind of like the other half of content planning. And then you'll please come prepared having read this and with questions you have on concepts or tools that you may need help with. So for this class, we're talking about content planning. Content planning involves content, roles, content strategy, and the fact that different users have different needs. Remember, you are not your customer. We'll look into personas, scenarios, and user stories. So content planning. What is content? What are the roles that you need on your content management team? What is the strategy? You have to know the dimensions. As I said, you are not your user, so we'll need to go over personas, scenarios, and user stories. So content, let's jump right into the very first step. Can't have content planning without content. So what is content? Well, content versus raw data. Raw data is data that has been gathered by a computer or a human that has not been processed for use. Content, on the other hand, is data created by humans via the editorial process or data targeted to humans delivered by a publication process. Web content management providers provide content via the content management system. So what about roles? We have content established. What about roles? Content management system team includes editors, site planners, developers, administrators, stakeholders, and customers. So you might add, is this slide upside down because we should always put our customers first? So let's start off with editors. Editors create, edit, manage content in a content management system. Editors can take the form of approvers, marketers, user advocates, user-generated content managers, or translation coordinators. Approvers ensure that content is valid, accurate, and that it meets the quality standards and meets the brand standards established by your business. Empowers publication. Approvers empower publication. Marketers or user advocates ensure that the content and publication meets the marketing goal of the site and ensures that the content meets the needs of the users. User-generated content managers ensure user-generated content is managed correctly and meets the needs of the site. User-generated content means visitors to the site, so that would mean user profiles, blogs, forums, etc. And then there's translation coordinators. That's another flavor of editor. They ensure that the translated content meets the needs of the customers in the target language markets. Okay, so then we have site planners. Site planners ensure that the content management system delivers content that meets the website's objectives. There are content strategists, user experience designers, and information architects. The content strategists advocate for content governance, message, tone, and style. They advocate for the throughput, the people, processes, and technology. And they advocate for the business strategy. The user experience designers ensure that the user experience connects the user to the website's objectives and business strategy. They advocate for user-centric design practices. Information architects ensure that the website context, content, and systems are structured to empower visitors and to deliver the website's objectives. Then we have developers. Developers install, configure, integrate, and template the CMS to deliver web content consistent with the strategy and the objectives of the site. They take the form of infrastructure support developers. Infrastructure support developers install and configure the content management system, apply patches, maintain the infrastructure, and create and maintain roles and permission. Front-end developers create HTML, CSS, JavaScript to ensure that the presentation layer of the website meets website standards and that the content can be consumed and enjoyed by customers. Back-end developers ensure that the back-office systems and databases in the application layer support and function with the presentation layer. This is done with the API, Application Programming Interface, using CMS programming language. The connection is often a REST API. So the REST API is representational state transfer. It's an architecture to enable interoperability between systems on the internet. It has dimensions. There's the client-server dimension, the stateless protocol, it's cacheable, it's layered, it's code on demand, and it's uniform interface. So those are a lot of words. Where does it fit in the typical web content management system with regard to back office layer, application layer, and the presentation layer? So the back office layer is all of the stuff that feeds the web content management system through either network, XML, or this REST API. The application layer then consists of the applications that run the website. We have Drupal, we have Solar, which is our search engine, we have our e-commerce engine, and then there are integrated hosted solutions, video host, maybe live chat, newsrooms, price databases, survey tools, and things like that. The application layer is then connected to the presentation layer. The presentation layer is what the customer sees. And again, this is through networking, XML, or the REST API. The REST API connects the application layer and the presentation layer such that we have account management handled by Drupal, marketing automation handled by marketing automation software. We have search results which come from the application layer through Solar and are displayed via Drupal. And then we have displays or interactions with the visitors of the integrated hosted solutions like live chat, surveys, videos, pricing, and the CDN, the Content Delivery Network. Then finally we have administrators. Or I shouldn't say finally. The next group is administrators. Their responsibility is for operations, maintenance, and performance metrics. There's the CMS administrator who manages the CMS software workflow, applies security patches, and manages licensing. They manage workflows, roles, and permissions of the site once it's up. Server administrator manages the servers that the content management systems are installed on or deploy the content to. They care for the operating system, the server software, hardware, load balancing, etc. Database administrators manage the database server and storage networks that the content management content and configuration depend on. And then we have stakeholders. So stakeholders include the entire team responsible for the results of the website, intended to deliver, including responsible parties for creating and maintaining website infrastructure, creating and maintaining website content, and setting the website objectives and goals. I always include customers or visitors as stakeholders because I think they have a stake in the website as well. Then there's the content strategy. Content strategy is a very important part of content planning. Content strategy is strategically orienting a website content objectives to align with business goals and website objectives. The content strategy dimensions include content inventory, brand, style guides, design, content auditing, metrics, and continuous improvement. So this is kind of like a step-by-step way to think about your content strategy. The first thing you should do is the content inventory of your existing content with cursory comments and thoughts of the content's purpose, relevance, and status. That can be done in a spreadsheet kind of like this. So we have the title of each web page, we have its URL, we have its description, we have all of the links that link to this page. I made this very simple in my example. All the links that link from the page. We have creation date, update, owner, importance, status, and comments. So this is just taking an inventory of your current content. The other dimension is brand. So brand includes the message, the media, the style, and the tone. Your brand kind of conveys to the customer a degree of trust and a degree of purpose. And then in order to continue on with the dimensions, the next step is to develop a style guide. Your style guide is a living document of code guidelines, application guidelines, content creation guidelines, message guidelines, design guidelines. Beyond its use in consolidating guidelines, it's the source of truth for the entire team to reference when discussing site changes or iterations. And then the next step is to do the content audit. Content audits are very important, and it's kind of like the extension or the next step or the evolution of the content inventory. So once you have your content inventory, you do your content audit. The content audit evaluates the current content versus your strategic goals, evaluates your current content versus your messaging goals, little typo there, and evaluates your content in terms of organization from the perspective of your customers. Content audit questions. What is the content about? Is it up to date? Is it accurate? Does the content reflect, advocate for business goals? Is the content findable? Is it logically oriented? Does it have a consistent voice, style, and tone? Are the search engine optimization elements accounted for? Is there anything missing? And then you need to have metrics. Metrics are the content strategy is strategically orienting the website to align with. Oops, that's the metric. That slide was. I will remove that. Let's ignore that and go into metrics concerning key performance indicators. How does your content mesh with the business strategy? What is the conversion rate of the calls to action? What's the user experience analysis? And how are you doing with your Net Promoter Score? These are common key performance indicators or metrics for a website. By the way, leaving that mistake slide in there doesn't quite rise to the level of an egregious mistake. You guys are perfectly allowed to rib me in class for that mistake. But I'm just going to keep rolling with the video. Okay, so Net Promoter Score, or NPS, measures the customer experience and predicts business growth. This is a proven metric transformed the business world and now provides the core measurement for customer experience management programs around the world. That definition was taken from that netpromoter.com URL there at the bottom. It all starts off with the Net Promoter Survey. The survey may ask several questions for which the responses may be useful in many ways, but the primary question is how likely is it that you would recommend insert company to a friend or colleague. The survey goes from 0 to 10. 0 is highly unlikely, 10 is highly likely. Promoters are those scores that are 9 and 10. They're loyal enthusiasts who will keep buying and referring others, fueling growth. Again, these definitions are from that website referenced below. A passive score of 7 to 8, they're satisfied, but they're enthusiastic customers who are vulnerable to competitive offerings. We call these neutrals. And then the detractors are your 0 through 6. These are unhappy customers who can damage your brand and impede the growth through negative word of mouth. So the Net Promoter calculation to get your Net Promoter Score is promoters minus detractors divided by responses times 100. So for example, if we had 245 promoters, 61 detractors, and total responses that equaled 311, the Net Promoter Score would be 59.16%. We can take these Net Promoter responses and we can categorize them. In this case, for example, the biggest detractor was I couldn't find what I was looking for, followed by I'm having technical problems with the website, followed by I dislike having to register to download, followed by smaller categories. 40% in this example say they couldn't find what they were looking for. Well, what couldn't they find? The biggest chunk is ready to buy content. Next biggest is manuals, followed by discontinued products, followed by service, then software, and then some other smaller categories. So 10% of the detractors were looking for manuals. The percentage of the detractors looking for current manuals was 50%. Discontinued manuals was about 35%. And then translations of manuals was about 15%. Hopefully that adds up to about 100% of that 10%. 30% experienced a problem with the website. Biggest one, manuals won't download. Next biggest one is registration, followed by the site slowness. So that's a way that we can look at our Net Promoter Score to find out how we're doing, and also look at our Net Promoter responses, specifically the comments, to know what it is we need to work on. This will help us to drive continuous improvements. Iterative reviews of our content strategy is vital, are vital. Have our business goals changed? Do we need to refresh the message? Do we need fresh content? Is our content outdated? And let's remember that different users have different needs. So who is the content for? Potential customers, end users, trainers, customer support experts in your company, or all of the above? So we need to determine user needs. In order to do that, we create personas, we create scenarios, and then we create user stories. So let's start off with creating personas. Personas are fictional representations of our target audience. Personas feature concrete, actionable, specific, real-world attributes to inform our documentation or our website. Personas express the needs and expectations of our audience. Personas verify users' expectations. Personas guide us in knowing what features and functions are most useful, and personas document our users' backgrounds, goals, and values. Here are some sample personas. So we would use this format and we would create personas. Let's think of these in terms of our premise, the premise that our class is mimicking. So we start off with name, and then job, title, and education, demographic, and then a quote. So Daniel Lofty Years is a senior product development manager. He's got a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering and a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering. He's 55 years old. He's married. He's the father of 3. Computer programming is his hobby. His quote is, "If your product takes me more than 10 minutes to know how to use, I'll be ringing your competition's doorbell." And then let's just do one more. Lucia Hernandez is the Chief Procurement Officer. She has a BA in economics. She's 37 years old, newly married, loves to travel, and an avid cyclist. And her quote is, "Just because I'm price motivated doesn't mean I won't ding you on features, and don't make it hard for me to find your price." Okay, so we create those. The next thing we do is we create scenarios. So scenarios are outline goal-driven interactions between personas and the content. So we have our personas. Now we're going to make our scenarios to outline the interactions between personas and the content. The scenarios contain goals, expectations, motivations, actions, and reactions. So let's just go through this first scenario. Daniel Lofty Years is happy. He just learned from his Chief Procurement Officer, Lucia, that several solar intensity software packages have been shown to meet his project's specifications. Daniel's challenge is that he has a very smart team of engineers that work around the world. He needs to know that the software not only meets his project's specifications, but that it has a user interface and documentation in the language of each of his engineers. So the complementary scenario then would be for Lucia Hernandez. She's been given the green light to by the senior manager of product development, Daniel, that she can purchase one of the 3 software packages his team has vetted. Due diligence is an important part of Lucia's job. Not only does she need to easily find the price of each software package, she needs to ensure that each package has each feature that Daniel requires. So we have personas and we have scenarios. Now we need user stories. User stories are written sets of actions and events that culminate in a specific outcome. User stories must be standalone, concise, and measurable. User stories connect users to designers and to developers. The user story takes this formula. As a insert role, I need to do something in order to benefit from an experience. Okay, so let's plug those into our scenario. As a senior manager of product development, I need to provide the most appropriate solar intensity software to my team in order to ensure that the hardware they develop serves our customers' needs. And then Lucia's, as a Chief Procurement Officer, I need to verify each software feature in order to provide the best value to my company while providing the best tools to our engineers. Okay? Creating documentation for many users. Problem is we have conflicting user needs, right? I'm researching the best product to take measurements. That's a pre-sales need. I already own the product. Now I need to know how to use it. That's post-sales. So how do we satisfy both sets of customers in one website? For the pre-sales, we have the tabs for the overview, models, and compare. And for the post-sales, we have software, probes and accessories, and technical documentation. So the overview is useful for pre-sales. The models are useful for pre-sales. The compare is useful for pre-sales. But the software is useful for people in post-sales. The probes and accessories are useful for people in post-sales. And the technical documentation are useful for the people in post-sales. So that's the content planning session. Hopefully that all made sense to you. If you have any questions or need any help with anything, please let me know. Thank you.